Okay, we will call the meeting to order at 7:00 p.m. Do we have any elected officials present this evening? I did not see any. Okay. We have 7 members present. We have Director Melissa Cole and Director David Fleming are absent. We got the unfortunate news this afternoon that Director Carl Steinbach has resigned immediately, so he will not be with us at this meeting or in the future. We will begin with public comments. Looks like I have a bunch.
Okay.
Steve has more than please run down. This is, knowledge. At the public.
President Smith,
Yes.
while we're doing that, just really quickly, this is our first time using this venue, and we were informed when we picked up the keys that we have to be out of the building by 10. So I already discussed this with Director Smith. We may have to keep things a little bit abbreviated this evening, just to make sure that we have time to get everyone and all of our equipment out before the alarm turns on. So I just wanted to let everyone understand the kind of time limits we're under.
Sorry for the delay, about when we were expecting. Okay, we're going to start with just the general public comments. Mr. Steve Chamberlain, you come up front, please, so the recorder can pick you up.
I'm sorry.
There's a podium.
There's
in the back.
there's a podium.
I didn't know there was a
There.
podium.
You'll need to
Right.
turn the mic on. Just press the button on the.
And you have 3 minutes, sir, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, President and board members. Thank you very much for having me. I'll try to keep it short. For the record, I am Steve Chamberlain, Chair of the Bastrop County Democrat Party, and I want to talk about the current population of Bastrop County from the 2020 census has grown to 97,216 residents. The county has an annual growth rate of 2.34% currently. That will put our population at over 100,000 in just over a year. With all this population growth, we do not want to have to buy back water from the companies along the I-35 corridor that are taking it away and us having to buy it back from them. The directors told the staff that the Central should be set at a 240-foot drawdown or less, and taking that with the recent groundwater availability GAM studies related to the 240-foot drawdown, that results in about 83,000 acre-feet per year of allowed pumping, and this is about 3 times what it should be. So please consider all this in your DFCs, and please don't make the Bastrop citizens have to buy back water that was originally ours to begin with. Thank you very much for allowing me confidence.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Curtis, this says citizen comment 1 minute.
Yes, 1 minute. Steve, real quick, the
10 years ago, we had 83,000 in Bastrop County, I think you told me. Okay, so this is just a request of the board in your deliberations on some of the things that are on the menu tonight, especially rules and promulgating new rules for the district. I wanted you to think about growth, which I feel was underplayed in the development of the DFCs. So I called the county, both counties, and I have this number as a guesstimate, a pretty good one from the development department in Bastrop, who told me that about 7,500 people are moving in by virtue of developments already underway or coming for more permits, at the county. In Lee County, that's about 1,000 people. So please take that into consideration. Last request is that we, our groundwater district and our cities and our counties start coordinating and planning together. I've asked the commissioners here in Bastrop County to start coming to meetings, or some of them need to be at our meetings, these meetings, and maybe vice versa. That's where you two create with your committees. Thank you very much. Probably more than.
Thank you, Linda. Hugh Brown?
Seems a little strange to be using the lectern in the back of the room, but I'll make do. As you recall, last time I mentioned that we need to be working on increasing the recharge into the aquifers, and that a lot of the practices that would do that come under the general subject of soil conservation. Since that time, I've talked to the people down at the Natural Resource Conservation Service in Giddings. A man named Brandon O'Reilly was a first-time gentleman, and he seemed willing to help us. He thought the major thing we might be doing is working on reducing overgrazing so we have a better grass cover that will hold rain in place. I also went on the internet and just put in aquifer recharge, and boy, you get a lot of stuff. Anyway, I printed off a couple of reports that are there that I thought might be a start and give you some idea of some of what's on there. So I want to now bring that up front and give it to the board, and then you can read them and hopefully we'll go on from there. Now my feeling about pumping is that we should not be pumping more than the recharge rate. And that's one reason why I think we need to raise up the rate. I've gone over that in previous meetings anyway, so I will now bring up these papers. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. The rest of the comments I have are for agenda item 9. Is there anyone else that has a general public comment before we begin?
There's the phone number.
I think I had it in both places, both 9 and.
Did you? Let me find
But I'm left-handed, maybe not do that.
Oh, okay. Yes, Ernie, go ahead, Mr. Becker.
My name is Ernie Bogart, don't have any wells. My wife and I own property that is supplied by Aquawater and property in Elgin that is supplied by the city of Elgin. We're both very concerned about the future of the water supply for this county and the businesses. And I have not been able to find any data that indicates that our recharge rate at the current time with the current pumping is keeping up with the pumping that's going on now. And so anything that increases that, I think, puts this county's future at peril. And I hope the board, in considering any changes that they're going to make, will consider the fact that we're going to have to be here maybe 100 or 200 years. I don't know. I may not be here for all of that, but I'll be here for part of it. And hopefully my property will be here for my kids or someone else And so I hope in your considerations, you'll keep in mind that we should be able to maintain the level of the aquifer and not manage its depletion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bogart. Anyone else wish to speak? The public comments? Otherwise, all the rest of them I have are for agenda item 9 on DCs. Okay. Agenda item 4, review and approval of the minutes of the September 15th, 2021 regular board meeting. We'll do that one first. Board members, you all have copies, had a chance to review them. Comments, corrections? Or motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Any other comments, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we will do the minutes of the October 12th, 2021 special call board meeting, which included the LCRA final hearing. Does anyone wish to move to approve the changes? Any motions?
Correct, as far as I know, so.
Okay,
A second.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 5, consideration of financial report for the period of September 1, 2021 through September 30th, 2021. Mr. Taunton?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. The user, working from the starting with the operating fund balance for the district for the reporting period of September 30th, ending September 30th, the operating fund balance stood at $501,746.85. The tax pool fund balance stood at $3,557,784.31, giving us a grand total of $4,059,531.16. User fees collected to date are tracking where we would expect them to be for this time of year. We're about 3/4 of the way through the year. We had estimated 1.3 million approximately in funding, and we brought in just under 1 million, so 970,000. As far as expenses for the district, everything is tracking again more or less where we'd expect to be for the year. In previous reports, we have pointed out a couple of line items where we'd overshot. Website fees associated with hosting extra video, increasing server capacity for emails, things like that. So we will come back at the end of the year with budget amendments to correct those. But with the exception of, those previously mentioned items, and everything else is tracking where we expect to be for this time of year. Our legal fees have been low so far, but I suspect that's going to come to an end fairly shortly. But other than that, like I say, we're in pretty good shape as far as how we've budgeted so far. So if there are any questions about the current budget, I'll be happy to answer those.
Any questions from the board? Is there a motion to approve?
I so moved.
Second? Anyone?
Second.
There's a motion, a second, to approve the financial report for September 1st through the 30th, 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're going to take items 6 and 7 together, and then we'll hear a presentation from Gatehouse. I'll read these if they so choose. Mr. McCarthy, are you planning to make a presentation this evening?
No, ma'am, I hadn't been told I'd have the opportunity, so
I didn't think of it either.
thank you, though.
You're welcome. Okay, I'll just read these. Agenda item 6, consideration of and possible action on Gatehouse Water LLC's request for contested case hearing in response to votes taken on July 21st, 2021 regarding 1, Gatehouse's compliance with special condition number 8 of Gatehouse's 10 Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District operating permits, and 2, separate application to amend Gatehouse's 10 Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District operating permits, the July 21st hearing request. And Gatehouse's request for contested case hearing in response to votes taken on July 27th, 2021 regarding 1, Gatehouse's compliance with Special Condition 8 of Gatehouse's 10 Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District operating permits, and 2, separate application to amend Gatehouse's 10 Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District operating permits, the July 27th hearing request. And agenda item 7, consideration of and possible action on Gatehouse's consolidated motion for rehearing in response to the board's actions, votes, and orders taken July 27th, 2021, August 18th, 2021, and August 30th, 2021 regarding 1, Gatehouse's compliance with Special Condition Number 8 of Gatehouse's 10 Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District operating permits, and 2, denial of Gatehouse's application to amend its production permits. Are there anyone here that would like to give public comment? At this time, the board is going to go into executive session to consult with its attorneys regarding any posted matter in which the board may seek the advice of its attorneys under Government Code 551.071, or for any action on the agenda for which a closed session is permitted by law, and will reconvene in open session for any appropriate action on any matter considered in executive session. Unfortunately, we don't have a separate meeting place for the board to go, so we will have to ask everyone to vacate this room. Perhaps you might want to take some chairs outside. Not aware of any other accommodations. My apologies. So the board is going into executive session at 7:17 on item 6 and 7. Okay, we're going to get started. We're back out of executive session at 7:49 p.m. We're going to start with agenda item 6, consideration of possible action of Gatehouse Water request for contested case hearing in response to votes taken on July 21st, 2021 regarding Special Condition 8 of Gatehouse's 10 operating permits. We'll take up that one first. Are there any motions or comments from the board?
I move to deny the Gatehouse contested case hearing request presented at Lost Pines July 21st meeting because the board later vacated the vote.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Any questions, discussion, comments, legal staff? If not, I'll do a roll call vote. Mike Semang, Director Semang.
I always get to vote first.
Well, since I became president, I redid the roll call list.
Thank you.
So I can do it reverse next time. Yeah.
Aye.
Aye. Larry Shoddy,
Aye.
Billy Sherrill,
Aye.
Mr. Herbert Cook is recused. Kay Rogers,
Aye.
Bill Cook,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. So motion carries.
Natasha, can I ask you a question about the request for a contested case hearing on the July 27th, 2021 vote taken by the board? Was that request for contested case hearing filed in a timely manner?
So the district rules require that a request for contested case hearing come in no later than the 5th day before the date of the public hearing. And for that application the application was for an amendment to revise Special Condition 8, but there was also an action taken that's being requested a hearing was requested on. That was a decision to invalidate a contract. And so the board had discretion to grant a public hearing, but did not grant a public hearing. So therefore, no such request was received by the 5-day deadline. So that was the long answer to your question. The short answer is no. No request.
No, there was no timely request made.
Correct.
Okay, well, based on that, I'm gonna make a motion that we deny contested case hearing for votes taken on July 27th, 2021 by the board concerning the gatehouse request.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Shoddy, second. Any questions or comments, discussion by the board?
You realize that motion included that there was no timely request made for a contested case hearing on the
No.
July 27th, but
No timely. Okay. Okay. Let's see if I can read.
Can we restate the motion?
Yeah, let's start over.
Yeah.
I think I got it mixed up. Go ahead, Kay.
okay, I move that we deny a contested case hearing concerning votes taken by the board on July 27th, 2021 on the gatehouse matter because no timely request was made for such contested hearing status.
Mr. Shoddy, you approve your second? Okay. Any other questions? Comments by the board? All right, roll call vote again. Mr. Semaine, you're first again.
Thank you.
Well, how do you vote? Aye. Larry Shoddy?
Aye.
Billy Sherrill?
Aye.
Mr. Cook is recused. Kay Rogers?
Aye.
Phil Cook?
Aye.
And aye. My vote is an aye. Motion carries. Okay, now we go to agenda item 7. Consideration of and possible action on Gatehouse's consolidated motion for rehearing in response to the board's actions, votes, and orders taken on July 27th, 2021, August 18th, 2021, and August 30th, 2021, regarding Gatehouse's compliance with Special Condition 8 of the 10 Lost Pines Groundwater District operating permits, and number 2, denial of Gatehouse's application to amend its production permits. Does the board wish to take any action?
I make a motion that we table that motion for rehearing while our legal staff examines the issues raised in there and meets with us additionally.
Is there a second?
I'll second
Mr. Sherrill seconds. Any questions, comments, discussion by board members? Okay, we have a motion and a second to table item number 7 to give our legal team more time to evaluate the legal issues involved. Roll call vote, Mr. Semaine?
Before we get into that, will you tell my wife how rich and powerful I am? Everybody just follows.
I'll do a personal phone call, yes. Aye, okay. Director Shoddy?
Aye.
Director Sherrill?
Yes, ma'am.
Director Cook is recused. Kay Rogers?
Aye.
Bill Cook?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion carries. And that finishes item 6 and 7. Item number 8, discussion of and president's appointments of board members to committees. These are to just fill committees that are already appointed, and there's some positions vacated by Mr. Mike Calvin's resignation. For the Rules Committee, Kay Rogers has agreed to serve on the Rules Committee. Mr. Phil Cook has agreed to serve on the Building Committee. And Melissa Cole has agreed to serve on the Monitoring Well Committee. And that's all I have for that number 8. Okay, agenda number 9, we're going to have some public comments for number 9. Herbert Cook, would you like to rejoin us, please?
Thank
Okay, this is the agenda. Agenda item number 9, discussion and update by General Manager Taunton and District Hydrogeologist Andy Donnelly on groundwater management area 12. Progress to adopt the desired future conditions proposed by GMA 12 in the current round of joint planning and the process for updates to the district management plan following the adoption of the DSCs. Okay. Mr. Kermit Heaton.
My name is Kermit Heaton. Is the mic working? I have an agricultural well in Bastrop. I'm also one of the ground landowners involved in the LCR, the ag issue. I have provided my written comments to all 5 of the groundwater conservation districts in GMA 12 in writing, especially for the new board members. I like my comments and encourage you to read them. Today, I just want to emphasize one important point. You guys have a tough job. You need the best tools possible, and you need the best set of rules possible. The next opportunity to make improvements in that are some new desired future conditions. If you don't get better tools than what you've had, you're gonna wind up like Post Oak Savannah and Vista Ridge, which, as you know, is not good at all, especially for everybody involved that owns property in Bastrop and Lee County. One thing I'd like to mention that kind of emphasizes that point, and I like to use people's quotations. One is from Thomas Jefferson. He said, if we leave it to Washington when to sow and when to reap, soon we'll have no bread. That quote applies to Austin and water also. You guys need to be able to use sound, good judgment, and you need the tools to do that. And if you listen to environmental stewardship and Senator Aqua Water Defense Fund, they have some excellent points that will help improve the tools you have now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Keith Copeland.
Madam President, board members, thank you all for letting me have the opportunity to come visit with you. My name is Keith Copeland. I'm a landowner and a water well owner in GMA 12, but I'm also a consultant hydrogeologist. I've been doing groundwater investigations for 40 years, 10 years with the state of Texas with the predecessor agency of TCEQ. All I really wanted to do is give you some, this really kind of caveats on the last speaker's comments about the tools. The models that are being implemented and used, and again, I get it, the models are what we have to work with. But there's some areas in these models that I think everyone should be very cognizant of, is that there's a lot of interpretation. There's the models interpret like
different groundwater zones, is the hydro communication, is there any communication between water bearing zones? How that is implemented in these aquifer, in these big models, again, it's challenging, it's very challenging. When I came out of school over Baylor a billion years ago, I did my thesis on the Wilcox Carrizo. And what I found out through all my studies and work, it's a very complex hydrogeologic aquifer. In that case, it makes these models very difficult. There's a lot of challenges in these models. All I'm trying to do today is just, as a landowner, a water well owner, is, as this data is being presented to the board, use a little bit of discretion, but also very conservative interpretations. Let the science catch up. I can tell you right now, after I've been doing this forever, the science is not with us yet. It's going to take some time. The data that we're relying on is data that was garnered by maybe water well drillers, and they're just putting the data down on logs and looking at it. There's a lot of geophysical logs that can be brought in. Let the science catch up, augment these big models, and be very conservative in your decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Ernest Bogart.
Anything that deals with desired future conditioning, I think, has at the outset got to start with the premise that we're not going to continue to reduce the level of this aquifer. And if we do anything else, we're just stretching out the diminution and ultimate loss of water to this county and to this community. And that's not within the gambit of the charge to this organization. And I hope that in setting the desired future conditions, we will take that into consideration and at a minimum keep them at the level that they've been at the past, and perhaps consider reducing or increasing the required conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Andy Weir.
Good evening, I'm Andy Weir with the Simsboro Aquifer Water Defense Fund. I'm a resident here in Bastrop County. I have a domestic well in the Simsboro formation of the Teresa Wilcox Aquifer. Last week I had mentioned to y'all, and I hope that it was distributed, that Sawdeft, we undertook to do an economic impact study on domestic and livestock wells. And that was sent to all of the members in GMA 12. For the boards to look at. And I know we're going to look at a new pumping file that was presented last week at GMA 12, which is the S15 pumping file. And Environmental Stewardship and Sawdeft have been working with hydrologist George Rice to try and get a handle on that. So I'm going to present to y'all an addendum that shows at different levels of pumping the economic impact. So the S15 file does reduce the impacts from $384 million down to about $200 million. But you can, so that's some of the impacts that are in there when you take out some of the permits that aren't in effect. And you reduce the pumping. What I want to point out is you're still, with the numbers that were previously presented to the board, to hold at the drawdown number, 240 feet, you're still pumping like 3 times as much. So what I would like you to look at is that lower effect of what, and the number of wells that are going to be impacted and the total economic damage to Lee and Bastrop counties. And to also remember if you go higher than the 30,000 acre feet of pumping, you're gonna double the amount of wells that you're going to damage. And 50% of the straws in the Carrizo-Wilcox Aquifer in Bastrop and Lee County are domestic and livestock wells. It's actually more than that, 51%. Those 51% of the straws in the ground are domestic and livestock wells. And that's who you're gonna be hurting when you ramp up the pumping. You're gonna double the number of people you're hurting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Steve Box, and we have 3 other people that have donated their time. In the interest of time, I've asked Mr. Box to limit his comments to 10 minutes since we're on a tight schedule tonight.
Thank you, and I will try to make it quick. I first want to thank the board for having given guidance to your staff to stay at around what is the old desired future conditions, and particularly at 240 acre feet or less. And as I've given you a handout here, and what I am going to talk about is from the first 3 pages of that. The rest of it is, and the tables are for your background and for those who want to really dig into it. And so that we can have a more thorough discussion about this if there is some opportunity in the future with either the ESC committee or the next meeting, that I wanted you to have this on your plate so that you can look at it. Just want to remind you that a DFC is really a 2-component process. You adopt a drawdown, and then, which is the method of measuring compliance, and that's the feet below the ground surface. And then you, related to that drawdown usually comes from one of these pumping files. And the pumping file for the current drawdown was used then to do a model of groundwater, the MAG. And once that is done by the Texas Water Development Board, those 2 pieces become the real guiding principles of the DFCs. And as Mr. Copeland mentioned, there's a lot of complexity in these, and what we're finding as we're evaluating the various proposals is that not only does the relationship between drawdown and pumping change from the old GAM to the new GAM, but it also changes from pumping file to pumping file. So the S12 is not the same as the S15. It's not the same as we go back to some of the earlier ones. So if you'll flip to the next slide. You know what the current adopted DFC is, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. 240 feet, 300,000, or 30,303 acre feet is MAG. And that's what we're trying to balance things against. So the proposed DFCs that you had suggested be something at 240 feet a drawdown or less. When Mr. Donnelly looked at the DFCs for the 240 feet, he came up with a drawdown of 239 feet using the new model. And this is based upon your guidance of 240 feet or less. The interesting part of that is that whereas the MAG is 30,000 acre feet, this results in the same BFC drawdown in S15, both results in about 83,000 acre feet a year of pumping, authorized pumping. And that is something 50,000 acre feet greater than what the other MAG, what the MAG is, and about, as mentioned earlier, 2.7 times the current MAG. And this is significantly greater than the current MAG. And I would remind you that the Bastrop and Lee County Commissioners Courts, in their resolution, requested that the DFCs not be significantly greater than the current DFCs. The impacts also from this pumping on the Colorado River is significant. It takes the Colorado River from gaining to a losing river. If you flip to the next page, this is our offer, or our option that we would like to place on the table for your consideration, what I call the or less option. And that is to go back and George Rice went back and modeled for us what would the drawdown be in S15 if we were using the MAG as our guidance. So with 30,500 acre feet as the pumping, which is about the same thing as the current MAG, he got 183 feet of drawdown. And that is equal to the MAG. It's not 50,000 acre feet greater than the MAG. It's 50,000 feet less than the proposed DFCs. The impacts on the Colorado River is that the outflows of the Colorado River are expected then, are predicted to continue to be a gaining river at about 8,650 acre feet. And that is an outflow of this almost 10,000 feet greater than the proposed DFCs. So you're in a position here where you have a decision to make. The conservation option, as custodians, you need to make a decision between the options that are on the table. And the one is 83,000 acre feet a year at 239 feet of drawdown from the S15 line, which is 2.7 times the current MAG. Or what we are proposing is that you look at is the 30,500 acre feet at 183 feet of drawdown, the S15, which is what we consider to be the preferred conservation option. And that protects the outflows of the Colorado River. The other option is something in between, and I understand that Mr. Conley's probably going to be making some runs and maybe report on it tonight, where he looks at the bracketing between the 30,000 and the 83,000 acre feet. So with that, I just want to say that, environmental stewardship, we're providing this information to you tonight. We understand that it's a lot of information to digest tonight. We are standing ready to help you or answer any questions you have, or even provide George as a resource if you are interested in pursuing that or having discussions about that at a DFC committee meeting or any other time. Please give me a call. Thank you very much, and we look forward to having those further discussions. We appreciate the fact that we are able to do that. And thank you for the time tonight.
You still have a few minutes. I have a question. When does the MAG get recomputed?
What?
When does the MAG get recomputed, refigured?
After the DFCs are submitted to the Texas Water Development Board for after an approval process, what do they call it, being acceptable anyhow. They take the pumping files and those numbers and they put it into their model that is essentially the same model that they're running it. And they have some special conditions that they go through to give a MAG result. And that, whereas this MAG that we're talking about is the 2070 MAG, which is at the end of the cycle.
Right.
They do one for each decade, and there's a lot of discussion about perhaps using more decadal type of data. So they will do one for each decade out of that 50 years. So that, and it's basically used to give guidance. It's not the regulatory requirement, but it gives you guidance on how to use it.
Okay, thank you. Board members, do you have questions for Mr. Steve Bucks?
Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much.
A question related to this, to General Manager Totten. In the Simsboro, since we're talking about it, how much pumpage is permitted right now? If you have that handy.
Andy, about
Total permitted?
total Simsboro?
Yeah, for Simsboro,
It's gonna be about 99,000 acre feet per year.
How much?
About 99,000.
90, I was thinking
It'll be
98.
107 with the LCRA, so.
107 with LCRA. Okay, that actually pumped, I believe there's only, right now being, was it 20,500 last year's pumpage, something like that?
Yes, ma'am, pretty close to that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Cheryl, would you, I didn't quite catch what you just asked. Would you?
Yeah, I was asking him first, with all the permits that are out there, how much is actually permitted? That's 99,000.
Yeah.
And then how much is actually pumped right now in the Simsboro is 20,500 was last year's figure. So basically, the vast majority that's permitted is not yet pumped, and that's the Simsboro.
And, Jim, Andy, what is the recharge rate in the district for the Simsboro?
I don't remember that off the top of my head.
That's, the only number we really have for it is one that's derived inside the model. So, but I can't recall what it is, what's built into the model either. Because again, that's gonna vary year to year based on climate, so there's not one absolute number. But the model uses an average number, an average amount of recharge, per year. I just don't recall what that is off the top of my head.
Okay. Are we ready for the presentation? So Dolly, please. This is-
If you broke it, they won't let us back in.
Yes. Yeah, it worked earlier. Oh. It was working fine earlier. Just got shut down when we were
I know how my wife feels. I don't try to do this at home.
That's the present DFC.
All right. This is gonna be short.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so, as a couple of the previous speakers have discussed a little bit tonight, yes, we have done some additional model runs. We were previously with GMA 12, we were at a run called S12, which had all of the permitted pumpage for lot lines in it. The result, it was about 126,000 acre feet per year. And that resulted in a Simsboro drawdown of 313 feet. And as we discussed at the last meeting, and I think everyone was kind of on board, we're really we're focusing on the Simsboro. So we have 6 aquifers, but the Simsboro is kind of the driver, so this is really discussing and talking about the Simsboro. So the drawdown in S12, the one we talked about before, is 313 feet. The Lost Pines pumpage is almost 126,000 acre feet a year in 27. The Lost Pines board, and as well as a variety of stakeholders.
Microphone, please. Sorry.
The Lost Pines board and a variety of stakeholders, including the Bastrop and Lee County's Commissioners Court, asked to maintain the current Simsboro DFC, which is 240 feet or less. So basically, for GMA 12, we modified S12 to reduce the Lost Pines average Simsboro drawdown to less than 240 feet. So the pumpage modifications, we had to start removing pumpage to get down there. The first step we did was remove gatehouse permitted pumpage because that was zeroed out. And then we reduced the remaining Simsboro pumpage evenly by an additional 15%, which brought us down to just shy of 83,000 acre feet per year. This simulation we called S15. This was recently presented to GMA 12. And here are the results. As you can see, Simsboro gets down to 239 feet. And as you'll see in the next slide, this is the difference. This is how much it brought it down. It brought the Simsboro and Lost Pines down to represent 74 feet. That also trails out to other districts. Post Oak Savannah, 61 feet. Brazos Valley is 21 feet. It also migrates to the other aquifers, so that you'll see that the Hooper is 37-foot benefit in Lost Pines, Cabo Bluff 27, Carrizo 12 feet, and so on. So that's the how much the drawdown has been reduced across the board with this S15, which basically this represents the current DFC for Lost Pines in 2070 of 240 feet. Now, we also had additional questions that have been asked regarding the impact of additional Simsboro reductions. We kind of went through the same process. We had a variety of requests. What happens if we reduce it 20%, 25%? In order to do that, I did a series of runs just to kind of cover all the bases. We started with S12, as we did to create the last run. And then we evenly reduced all of the pumpage after removing gatehouse, just the way we did before. Where I stepped it down, 25% reduction, 50% reduction, 75% reduction, 100% reduction. I zeroed the pumpage out, just to give us a graph that we'll look at in a second, so we see where we're standing. No other changes were made, and we assessed the average drawdown, and this is where we ended up. As you can see here, S12, this is the run that we were working with in GMA 12. Which was 125,000 acre feet, about 313 feet of drawdown. We dropped that down to S15, which is, as you can see, the current DC, which is 240 feet. S15 is just a little bit below that, it's about 83,000. And then what I did was I went ahead and did the same process, but there's the result with just gatehouse being removed, and then evenly reducing all of the other Simsboro pumpage. We didn't look at different permits in different ways. I just put in a factor and it multiplied all of the remaining pumpage, and it stepped it down to here. So if you have no pumpage in Lost Pines, Simsboro whatsoever, you've got about 140 feet drawdown, up to a little over about 255 feet without gatehouse, and then up to 313 feet with gatehouse, and that's where we are now. So this is, I think, gonna kind of cover the requests that we had from Director Cook and Director Smith regarding what is the relationship of how much we're producing this Simsboro and how much drawdown we get. Just a reminder, that is the current DSC, and as per tonight, yes, the pumpage is a lot higher. That is due to the new model. I think all of the modelers, all the people who were working with the model knew that the old model over-predicted the drawdowns, and so that's part of the reason that the model was updated. So it was not a surprise that we have higher pumpage now than we did before. But those are the drawdowns that were selected in the last round, and actually the first round too. Those are virtually identical. And so that's the current DFC, and that's where we stand. That's my last slide. I just thought this is kind of what the directors wanted to see, and open it up kind of for discussion to see where we go from here.
Andy, you're also working on some other pumping files regarding what's happening in the southern part of Lee County, right? Could you just touch on that quickly?
Yeah, there's some other, and we're in the process of working through it. There are some projects in the Carrizo that are happening to the south of Bastrop County. Those have been, the permits have been around for a long period of time. However, they're just ramping up. They're putting the wells in. It looks like, I think the latest I heard was there was projects going to be online in 2023. Although one of them has some delays, they've been pushing it back. So I'm not sure exactly what the status is. The general manager and I have been out. We're looking at starting to identify and start monitoring so that we're aware of, we know what the background pumpage is, so we can start seeing what the impact is going to be. I have already started putting together actually a presentation that I was going to give to the board probably in the next few months, basically showing where these wells are, what their impacts are. It's all out of the Carrizo. Down in Gonzales County, there is no Simsboro. The Carrizo is the big producer down there. Those will impact most of the Carrizo. They have a little bit of an impact in overall number for Lost Pines. It's not great, but obviously the impact is going to be felt mostly down in that very southern tip down there by Rosanke and Jetto, the very, very southern portion part of Bastrop County. So that's something else that we will, GMA 12 will be including in the final run, is just putting those in there just to reflect them in the DSCs for Lost Pines, and more importantly, actually, the affected numbers in Fayette more than Lost Pines.
Okay, thank you.
So, open for discussion or questions or
Yes.
whatever we want to.
Questions from board members first?
Andy, Jim, well, my big question is where are we in the entire process of doing this, and how much time have we really got to get it done? I'm alarmed at it may have been a bit of a misnomer for us to characterize the 240 feet of drawdown, staying with that and not realizing that we were going from about 30,000 to about 83,000 acre feet of extra water being available. I can't speak for any other board member, but I never intended that. I thought we were holding the line at the 27 DFCs. And anyway, where are we in the process of approving the DFCs, and
we're basically at the point, I mean, we thought that at the last GMA 12 meeting that the DFCs were going to be adopted. We did get that to be delayed, and so that we can discuss it with the board now. The next GMA 12 meeting is on November 12th, and I wouldn't be surprised if the proposed, or the DFCs are adopted then. They have to be adopted by January 5th. That is a hard legislatively set deadline. And so, you know, pretty quickly after the November 12th meeting, we're working our way into the holidays and trying to get everyone together. You know how that goes. So I wouldn't be, I don't know what the intent is, but I wouldn't be surprised if November 12th is when that is the intent to look at afterwards.
Director, quick clarification. Were you referring to the 2017 DFCs?
Yes.
Okay, I heard it a little differently.
We do have a special called meeting of the board on November 8th. We haven't written exactly, the agenda item, but it will concern the DFCs.
Okay, November 8th.
Along with the LCRA hearing and.
The adoption of findings of fact.
Yeah, finding, now not a hearing. And then also we'll be talking about well mitigation in Northeast Lee County in that meeting. That's it. No other regular business.
And Natasha, Jim, once GMA 12 adopts the DFCs, does our board get another look at them? What happens then? Do we have to approve those DFCs?
So the board that adopts the DFCs is the GMA, and
Yeah.
then they prepare, and they have to do that by January 5th. They prepare this explanatory report, which is the package that justifies the DFCs. All of that goes to the Texas Water Development Board. Texas Water Development Board will review and approve and send back the DFCs. And so at that point, that's when the district will review them for basically incorporation into their management plan. So there's, at that point, there's not really an opportunity to change them. And so that's why you have a 5-year planning process through the GMA.
So essentially, once the DFCs are adopted by GMA 12, that's it as far as the board is concerned?
That's right. Under the current 36.108, there are some situations where right now in the public comment period, which is over, but whenever you send your summaries of comments received to the district back to the GMA, that's when you would say, well, I suggest a revision to a DFC based on a certain comment. That is, I guess, slated to happen at the next GMA 12 meeting. So I think 4 of the districts in the GMA still need to provide those written summaries and any suggested revisions, but they're really good suggestions.
Yeah. Well, I was at the GMA 12 meeting, and I was alarmed at the fact that this additional 50,000 acre feet was not made salient in any way at GMA 12. And
it's been discussed at GMA 12. It's been discussed in meetings here. The 85,000 is, we've known it for a while, and it has been brought up.
well, all I can say is I haven't known it.
I think Andy's referring to a presentation that it may have been given before you were on the board, but it certainly was during the time when you were active in the district. 2018, at least one of 2018,
when we first did the in-kind services, the presentation that was made to the board, at that time I said it was going to be about 150% increase in pumpage in the Simsboro. I think Mr. Box said it was about 170%. So 150% of increase is about where we are. And then in 2020, there were a couple of presentations where we talked about 85,000. And we mentioned a bunch of other times that the upper 3 aquifers in the GMA, we can't meet the DFCs, and we can meet the DFCs in the Wilcox, but it's going to take more pumpage. I mean, so this is we've discussed it. And I know it's a complicated process, so it may have gotten lost in in the noise, but we brought these numbers up before.
Well, in the resolutions passed by the two county commissioners' courts, I don't think that was realized by the county commissioners or county judges, that we were talking about 50,000 additional acre feet, a lot of it coming out of Lee County.
Well, Director Cook, I mean, one, it's not, specifically Lee County, it's 50,000 acre feet in the district.
I understand that.
Okay, I was just making that clarification. Additionally, the DFCs are an expression of drawdowns. We evaluate everything based on drawdowns, socioeconomic impacts, it's all based around the drawdowns. The amount of pumping that it takes to achieve that drawdown is at most a secondary consideration. We're looking at and evaluating how drawdowns will impact the district. And so the DFC is holding that 240 foot of drawdown, which is what the board asked to do. That was a drawdown that was said as considered acceptable. The pumping that's required to achieve that, that's a function of the model. And so that made, if we redid the model in 2 years, we could get a different number. But that is just a function of the model. The DFC is the drawdown. That's what everything is evaluated on. And so we, the board said 240. Andy worked it out to 239 and came up with the 82,000 acre feet, which is in line with predictions that have been made throughout the process.
Well, again, I'm alarmed that that kind of additional acre feet of water coming out of the district is even being considered, to tell you the truth.
Does anyone else have questions? Mr. Box?
May I speak?
Yeah.
I think it's we have an opportunity every 5 years to review the DFCs and to make adjustments to the DFCs. And during that period of time, in this case, we've gone from the old model to a new model. And the new model is probably a lot more accurate, but it also said, well, it takes less drawdown to get to the 30,000 acre feet that we had used in the last round to determine what it was that we wanted to use as a drawdown. So the process in the beginning, the first 2 rounds, has been based upon, well, this is how much pumping we want, and based upon how much pumping we want, given the models, and we now have a different model, the drawdown changes. So this is our opportunity to stick with, to hold firm to the DFCs that we adopted the last time, which, as I mentioned, it's a combination. It's just like this situation now. You look at the numbers of relative to drawdown, to how much you're going to be pumping, and the pumping file tells you how much you're going to be pumping, and then determines the drawdown, and you decide whether that's what you want to adopt, or if you want to use a different amount of pumping and the drawdown related to that. And that is what we're looking at. That second dot from the right, and I can't read that bottom line down there, but
This right here?
yeah, what does that read?
That's going to be about 27,000 acre feet. It's going to result in, roughly about 170 feet of drive.
Right. And moving just a little to the right of that is where you get to a dot that says at 30,500 acre feet of pumping, which is very similar to the old MAG, it only takes somewhere around, the estimate that we have is that it takes 183 feet. So it depends on whether you want to, which end you want to work from. Yes, the DFC is the regulatory point that helps measure whether or not you're in compliance and whether you're meeting that DFC. But that regulatory point is set based upon how much water do you want to have moving out of the district by way of pumping in the district. So I would argue that, it's just as legitimate to say at this point, we want to stay at 30,000 acre feet, or whatever number along that continuum you decide on, that's as it is to say that the current DFC is 240 and we have to stay with that.
I think you gotta keep in mind that, yeah, I mean, you refer to water moving out of the district, but if you just consider the water that's permitted by users here, it's gonna exceed 30,000, 35,000 by quite a bit when you start talking about a time frame to 2070. So, you know, if you start saying we wanna keep it at 30,000, we're gonna be talking about a lot of cutbacks to the Simsboro across the district. Not only what's going out, but what's being used locally.
Well, currently, what we're asking you to do is to stick with where we are and have those discussions about how many people are coming into the district, what they will need. And I'm not, when I say water moving out of the district, I'm not talking about water that's being conveyed out of the district. I'm talking about water that's being pumped within the district. There's another whole layer to this that's how much pumping does Post Oak do, and what does that do to the drawdown in our district?
We're gonna be running out of time. I'll get your point completely. I wish we had more time, but unfortunately tonight we don't. Do board members have any other questions?
I think well, I'm sure we'll be discussing this in more length in the special meeting on November the 8th.
That's correct. No, it's the 8th, yeah.
And do you mind if I just respond?
Sure.
I think there might be a little bit of confusion. So the DFC is a guideline for management. Referring to it as a regulatory point is not consistent with what we see in the statute. The DFC is not a permitting cap. And so if you look at it as, you know, a regulatory framework or definitely cap, I think that could be a problem if you're issuing permits based on that. But it certainly is used in some of our district permits as a guideline to say, you know, pumping could cause adverse impacts if you're approaching this drawdown. Right, but it's not a regulatory cap.
You gonna say something, Jim?
I just had one quick closing point, and Steve brushed right up against it. You know, one thing to bear in mind is we look at 240 for the drawdown at 80,000 acre feet of production. Andy shows that if we zero out production within the district, we're still looking at 150 foot of drawdown. Almost 2/3 of the drawdown in the district are not being caused by production here.
What's it being caused by?
It's production outside the district.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a component as to what we produce above and below the Simsboro, but that's not pretty much is mostly what's coming in from the north.
And that's regional drawdowns. That's Bryan and College Station.
Yeah.
That's Post Oak. That's, you know, that is just a regional impact on the aquifer. So, and again, if we're looking at balancing, one thing to keep in mind is, you know, we can look at our production and look at those impacts, but at the end of the day, saying that, you know, 80,000 acre feet gives us 240 foot of drawdown, well, no, it's really giving us about 90 foot. The other 150 is being caused by production that's outside of our district. And with that, I'll.
Thank you. Yes, and we will look forward to discussing this further. Anything else? Andy, thank you. We have to move on because of our time, I'm sorry. Let's see. We are to agenda item number 10. Discussion of plans for Rules Committee to conduct open meetings to evaluate current district rules and whether any amendments to the rules will be recommended to the board. Further discussion of topics and issues that we will refer to the Rules Committee for evaluation. My plan is, we do have a Rules Committee set up, and I plan to perhaps have the first meeting beginning in November, if we can squeeze it in between all our other meetings we have. And basically to look at to review our rules and find out, well, for example, do we have any rules or policies that we can put in place to help with the problem we're facing right now, looking at the DFCs instead of just groundwater models only. Groundwater models are a good tool, but they shouldn't be a be-all and end-all. We need to look to see if there's other rules we might put in place. We might have rules where we can better balance planning, water conservation and production. We can write a rule very specifically describing what waste is. We might have a rule or a policy about how our agenda calendar planning goes. And these are just, I'm just throwing these out there because it's just time, you know. All the focus on the groundwater model is wonderful and all, but we need to look elsewhere to see how else we can help balance our rules. So basically, these will be open meetings where the public can join us, and so it will be announced. I don't have any idea when, but I'm hoping the first one can be in November. Board members, if you have suggestions for rules or ideas, and of course we're not going to decide all this in November. This is be something we do going forward over the future months. If you have ideas, if you would send them to me and copy Mr. Totten, that would be great.
Director Smith, do you imagine this being more of a virtual type meeting, or how do you see this going?
It could be,
Okay.
you know, at this point, I don't know, it just depends on, but I think some of the rules, you know, at some point could actually be where we want to involve the community and have a stakeholder, not for every single rule, but, you know, for some of the more important ones, because we need feedback. We have a lot of good minds in this room, and we need to take advantage of that. And that's all I have to say for that. Agenda item number 11, General Manager's Report. Mr. Totten.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. The General Manager's Report for October 2021. Starting with well statistics from September 1st through September 30th, we had 17 new wells that were drilled within the district. In addition, additional three existing wells that were registered with the district. During the reporting period, we conducted 3 water quality tests for well owners within Lost Pines, and have gauged so far approximately 45 wells. I may have lost count, it may be 43, it may be 46, but some of the wells we got to when we weren't able to gauge, but 45 roughly so far. I previously reported that we were going through an audit from the state auditor's office. That final report should be ready sometime in November. Unfortunately, they didn't lose funding, so they were able to continue working. So that report should be out shortly. We have been contacted again for a well owner that's curious about setting up a district assistance for plugging the unused and abandoned wells. Something we brought up previously. I meant to bring it to the budget committee today, but we got sidetracked on working on the actual budget. So we will revisit that going forward and possibly bring a recommendation for that. The budget committee did meet today. We began planning the 2022 budget for the fiscal year, focused on some new line items, possibly adding some increased educational outreach programs, working with one of the local, actually one of the potential board candidates we previously interviewed. So that maybe give us some good opportunities. We also evaluated the continuation of the funding for the Lee County Well Mitigation Program. We haven't quite finalized all those numbers. Our goal is to have a draft agenda for you in the board packet next month and have that up for a final vote at the December meeting. So hopefully, as we work through that, we'll get that out to you so you have time to comment, provide any feedback you have. The job posting for the assistant general manager has been live on the website. We've got it distributed out. We're hoping to close the application process at the first week in November. If we get applicants, we'll see how it plays out. We do have a plan B of looking at possibly hiring contract worker to do monitoring for us, just to take that off my plate if we can't find a suitable applicant before the end of the year. So we do have a plan B that we can also work on, and we're adjusting the budget to reflect those options. We do have one pending permit. I mentioned this previously. The city of Bastrop has a pending application with the district. They're looking to complete the well field they had previously applied for 5 years ago. So looking for an additional 4,000 acre feet from 3 wells on the excess ranch property. We had sent that back to them requesting some more information. They've gotten that requested information back to us. So we're going to continue processing that application, and it may be ready sometime in the first part of 2022. So probably we'll let you know as we move forward on that one, but earliest, I would say at the start of next year. As far as upcoming meetings, the only upcoming meeting that we have at this point is GMA 12, which Andy mentioned, scheduled for November 12th, 10 a.m. It'll be in the Post Oak Savannah's offices in Milano. It'll also have an online component for people that don't want to make the drive to scenic Milano. And with that, I'd be happy to address any questions from the board.
And the November 8th meeting, which will be at 6 p.m. at the Bastrop Convention Center.
I didn't know if you wanted to do that here or do it at the agenda, calendar
Okay.
agenda, but yes, ma'am, yeah.
Let's go.
Jim,
Yes, ma'am.
on these well permits, some are domestic, some are irrigation, and some are industrial. How do you define each? When they, there must be cutoffs.
I don't see an industrial on here.
It's on the July
Oh.
report, which somehow got put in here, so.
I'd
I
have to
just
go back
wondered
and-
just the difference.
So domestic is basically under the state, it's domestic uses and also, like irrigation, lawn and gardens, small operation. An irrigation well is strictly for irrigation, so that's somebody that's watering a hay patch or somebody that's doing, growing flowers or something along those lines where its sole purpose is irrigation. And then industrial.
There's no volume associated.
No, it's just type of use. And then obviously industrial is, the rendering plant.
Oh,
Okay. All right.
okay. Agenda item number 12, discussion of Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District legislation, related legislation, and or activities occurring that affect or pertain to the district of groundwater. Does anyone have anything? I don't. No? Okay. Agenda item 13, consideration of a board workshop, conferences, meetings, and educational opportunities board members desire to attend. Anyone? Okay. Item number 14, discussion of possible future agenda items and board meeting dates. I do want to say, if we wish to continue using this very fine facility for our meeting spot for Bastrop, we might consider a 6 p.m. start time, so I thought I'd like to put that on the agenda and get feedback from the public that attends the meetings and the board members to see if it's appropriate or not. So I'd like to put that on the agenda for November. Anyone else have anything they would like to have on the agenda?
So we finally get a hard cap on when meetings have to end, and you want to start earlier to expand it again?
Yeah, they have to start at 6 and be over by 9, my bedtime.
November's in Giddings, is that right? November meetings in Giddings?
Yes, ma'am, November is in
Yes.
Giddings at the
At
public
the
library.
library?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and that meeting will be at 7 p.m. because we have not voted to change the time. And we may not, we'll see, I'll just bring it up. All right. I don't have, anything beyond that, we're 15 seconds. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn? You did? All right. I want to stay here all night? Okay, let's do it.